I'm sure that most of us has either lost someone to drug addiction or at least known someone who has. Now, drug addiction is a complicated issue. It can destroy not only individual lives, but it can break apart entire families and disrupt communities. And despite America's declared war against illicit drugs such as heroin, cocaine, and marijuana, little stands in the way of average people obtaining legal narcotics, many of which are far more addictive than the hardest drugs you'll find on the street. Now, it might shock you to learn that the U.S. is #1 when it comes to the consumption of prescription pills. In fact, a 2013 study by the Mayo Clinic shows that nearly 70% of Americans are on at least one prescription drug, and more than half take at least two, with the most commonly prescribed being antidepressants and painkillers. This epidemic is the subject of a documentary called American Addict, and it explores the road that led this country from being the land of the free to the land of the addicted.
Pharmaceutical representatives are universally attractive. They get recruited from places like cheerleading squads at Big Ten schools.
What I'm holding is a bottle of Zyprexa. Zyprexa is an antipsychotic medication. It's very popular and it's very expensive. This, among some of the others, Abilify, are very commonly diverted. The reason being is, again, the medical programs, insurance programs pay a lot of money for these drugs.
Joining me now are the producer and director of the film, Sasha, Knezev, and Dr. Gregory Smith from LA. Thanks so much for coming on, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gregory, let's start with you. Why is prescription addiction such a problem in the U.S.? What is it about this country that has made addiction so endemic?
Well, that's a great question, and really that's the question that we ask in the movie, that we're about 5% of the world's population, but we're using 80% of the world's prescription hydrocodone, which are in drugs like Vicodin and Norco, and 50% of all the prescription drugs in general. So this is just not happenstance. This is a purposeful movement to get people to take medications. I mean, let's face it, sick people is a good business. Sick people that stay alive for a long period of time. So when people stay alive and they have chronic disease, these pills become the answer instead of a Band-Aid. They become the answer for the problem.
Sasha, the U.S. is only one of 2 countries in the world, other than New Zealand, that has direct-to-consumer advertising on prescription medicine. How much of that do you think feeds into this problem?
Well, it's a large problem. You know, it's very interesting, this film, to give a little background. You know, Gregory approached me. I'm a filmmaker, screenwriter, and I normally do narrative films, and I've never done a documentary. This is my first documentary. So what part of the process was, I knew the history of prescriptions based on what Greg gave me, and obviously we all have family members and friends in this country that are on some type of medication, but we started to investigate and unravel what went on, and you know, it was interesting because we really got to see how deep the rabbit hole went, so to speak. So direct-to-consumer advertising is just one of the aspects. There's several others. There's the FDA. I mean, it just, you know, we started going deeper and deeper, and I think one of the strengths of this film is that not only did we know going in what the problems were with what's going on with prescription medication and this epidemic in the country, but we kept continuously discovering more and more and more, to even, you know, I was shocked personally, and I think Greg as well, to what we did discover.
Greg, Sasha just said that you went to him for the film. As a doctor, was there something that you saw in the field that made you want to make this movie?
Well, I'm just sick of seeing people dying. I'm sick of seeing people be addicted to drugs when it's not necessary. So it's sort of been a crusade of mine for quite some time. Sasha and I met at a party when I was writing the book American Addict, and so the discussion started, and he said, you should make a movie about this, and about a year later we got back together and decided to do it. But it's an enormous problem, it's unnecessary, and it's really when you merge big business and people's health, and we've seen time and time again where people's health and well-being is trumped by big business.
It's a lose-lose situation there. Sasha, in the film, you guys go to undercover to a clinic to prove how easy it is to get these prescription pills. What are these clinics, and talk about your experience there?
Well, there's a Sergeant Steve Offerman. He directs a program called HALT, which its sole responsibility is to, you know, take illegal drug pills and artificial pills off the streets. That's an entirely, you know, different segment of this problem, which is the artificial and fake pills that are out on the streets. But then there's an entire, you know, medical and Medicare fraud aspect that goes on as well, where people are using Medicare and Medicaid, getting it from victims, everything from homeless people on the street to just normal individuals taking these pills, selling them to pharmacies, selling them on the street, repackaging them. Some pharmacies themselves are culpable in this. I mean, there's just so much in this. I mean, the bottom line is the patients that are suffering is the main issue at hand. But the illegal, criminal aspect of it, and how much, 300 billion is a number that they give us for the pharmaceutical industry, what they make. This is what the companies make. But there's, a completely underground black market where there's millions and hundreds of millions of dollars being made as well. So these are the two aspects of the film that we explore.
I
wanted to
might just add that.
Yeah, of course.
I was going to say that what's really important to understand is that the pharmaceutical problem dwarfs the street drug problem. I mean, there's 3 times as many people on these drugs that die from these drugs than heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamines combined. So the war on drugs, we're fighting the wrong war. I mean, the war should be against some of these pharmaceutical drugs that are killing people.
Well, to follow up on that, Gregory, why do you think it is that the U.S. is spending millions of dollars on a war on drugs to go after hard drugs like heroin, cocaine, and even marijuana, meanwhile overseeing the production of legal heroin with drugs like OxyContin and Vicodin?
That's a big question. The short answer is it's big business. I mean, pharmaceutical companies make an incredible amount of money. The medications are legal, so there is a combined investment to make sure that people are taking medications for a variety of ailments, whether they need it long-term or not. It's really been a situation where people all across the country are taking medications for the long term, and it's all about the money.
It really is. Sasha, I want to turn to you. We used to be shocked to hear about celebrities dying from speedballs mixing heroin and cocaine, but now it's almost commonplace to hear about celebrities ODing, or even other people. I mean, I'm just saying celebrities as an example here, on some kind of prescription cocktail, yet it's never addressed the same way as hard drugs are. How much is the media to blame for the culture of acceptance?
Well, the media is to blame, and I just want to make another note. We spend a lot of time in Washington, D.C., and one of the individuals interviewed in our film is Dr. Sidney Wolf, who is head of the FDA Advisory Committee in Washington. And he states in the film that the pharmaceutical companies are the strongest lobby in America. They pretty much get whatever they want. They took it from the tobacco company, and now they are the masters, and they get so much money, and this influenced the media not only through direct-to-consumer advertising, but also in the media itself, burying these crimes. And we see a lot of celebrities where initially reports come out where it is prescriptions that are, connoted to their deaths. But then later on, when autopsies come out, they, give a concoction of some other elements or some other drugs, and not really foregrounding or emphasizing that the prescription narcotics were a primary source of their death. So the media is complicit. We also see in movies and in television shows this perpetual usage of pills through the stars of TV shows.
It's glorified.
It's glorified, yes, exactly. Actors and shows. So that much like cigarettes did, 30, 40, 50 years ago, it makes children and other adults want to take those pills because they're seeing their favorite celebrities taking them, but then when these same celebrities are dying, they're not emphasizing it enough.
Exactly. It's totally downplayed. I'm really glad that you outlined that really well. Gregory, let's move on. Also, let's elaborate on what Sasha was saying earlier about the FDA. I mean, let's talk about how deep these pockets go. How big is the big pharma lobbying machine in Washington?
Well, it's most people feel like it's the #1 lobby right now, and when you look at the relationship between pharmaceutical companies and the FDA, it's a ludicrous relationship. The FDA is supposedly overseeing pharmaceutical companies to put out safe drugs, but yet at the same time, they get around 35% of their budget from these same pharmaceutical companies that have to pay fees to the FDA to get their drugs put on the market. And often people think I'm constantly bashing the FDA and the pharmaceutical companies. There are good people that work in both of these agencies, and in pharmaceutical companies. However, I think that the interests of the people at the top of these pyramids are not always genuine. And we've seen time and time again where medications are put on the market that should have never gotten on the market. Information studies are suppressed, and then it isn't until the drug kills or maims enough people that you see the FDA riding in on a white horse to take a drug off the market that shouldn't have never been on the market in the first place. It's ludicrous.
Right, and the monopolies on patents for life-saving medication, et cetera. Gregory, I just wanted to follow up because you're a doctor. I mean, I think a lot of people who visit the doctor after seeing an ad on TV about restless leg syndrome or whatever else is on there, and then they're peddled certain drugs by the doctors. It seems like a vicious cycle. Is there any way to protect ourselves from becoming American addicts?
It's all about the people educating themselves, because you can't rely on television ads and even your doctor often enough to tell you exactly what to do. And again, I'm not bashing the doctors. Sometimes doctors get a lot of their information from the pharmaceutical companies. They are entwined in our medical schools, and I was one of them. I believed in a conventional medical approach until about 9 or 10 years ago, when I saw that people simply weren't getting better, and I had more and more people that I was treating for chronic pain becoming addicted to these medications. And when I opened my eyes and really educated myself, it was a big difference.
Thank you so much. Everyone check it out, American Addict. It's on Netflix. You can find it online. Sasha, Knezev, Dr. Gregory Smith, filmmakers, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.